So this is a session we call Practicalities of Spiritual Mentoring Community. We want to give you an experience of it, sort of. We took it apart and looked at listening and asking questions and then having the group listening prayer before we actually told you exactly what it is, thinking that once you've experienced it, you'll get what it is. And so we gave you an experience of that. And on these handouts, I want to talk a little bit about how we think about what it is. And spiritual mentoring communities are places where we can come together in community and have safe times, safe places, and safe people for the long haul of ministry. In safe times in the sense is we need to get away. We need to get away out of that go and disciple mode where we need to get away. We need to get far enough away so the safe places where we can be in an environment that will call us to the heart of God and to each other. So we're not distracted. And so if we can be in nature, that's even more of a gift and amazing. And we're not where people can find us and say, pastor or evangelist or president, we need you for this or that or the other thing. So the safe times and safe places, that physical reality is huge. We have to honor the time when we are away and we put our work aside to rest and abide. And then the safe people is what we want to spend some time talking about how do we gather people together in such a way that we lean into each other for the long haul of ministry and we trust each other with the very depths of our souls. We know that we have our Christ with us and the Holy Spirit, but God created us to need and depend on each other. So the definition of mentoring communities is a mentoring community is a yearly, this is the basic definition, a yearly 5-day-long gathering of a mentor and 5 to 10 participants who leave daily life and work and go away together in order to listen, to love, and to pray for each other, for the glory of God and the work of God's mission. There are lots of variations to this, how this is done. So this is not the rule, this is sort of a guide. And we can talk about that more as a panel. So you will notice in here that it talks about who are the safe people. How do you know who the safe people are? And so the mentors are experienced, they're spiritually mature, they're humble. And so the Lausanne community says that a definition of a good leader is a his leader, H-I-S, humility, integrity, and simplicity. Humility, integrity, simplicity. So that kind of person who has on his or her heart a call to lift up the younger generation and is willing to humble himself or herself to that task, be a person of integrity in that task, and to live a simple God-centered life are the kind of mentors that work well for the long haul of ministry. And then participants, we look for people who are deeply committed to Christ. So it's not like you go out and just gather up whatever. It's like Leighton Ford's Gals and Guys to Watch. There will be people that God puts on your heart that you begin to notice that Christ is stirring in them in a special way. And these are people who want to be, who are committed to Christ and do the work of Christ, but also committed to that inner life, being interested in desire to grow, self-reflect. And so there's this posture that we share. We're committed to listen together. We're committed to transparency because it's a confidential, safe environment. We're committed to saying exactly what we need to say to be whole and healthy people on our walk with God and in our work for Christ. That's necessary. So we're committed to listen. We're brutally honest with each other, committed to transparency, and committed to love each other. I love these people. I love these people. And I can be, this is my group. And I can be transparent with them. And I can listen for hours to anything they want to say. I don't get tired of hearing them because we have been in this for the long haul. And we depend on each other. And you can see the fruit of that in our being here with you. So these communities are not social clubs. They're not elite spiritual clubs. They're not vacation time. It's not a training event. We don't turn this into an opportunity to train. That doesn't mean that some groups have training before or training after, but basically we protect this time for this deep resting and connection in Christ. And it's not like a Christian conference. This is a sacred, holy community of people doing life together for the long haul. And if you... So you know a community is from God if you find that yourself and in the group, steadily your love for God and self and others is increasing. Because the press of ministry can make it hard. But when your love for God and others is increasing, when your effectiveness, the fruit of the Spirit, is more evident, when you look forward to expectation to the next time you gather, that becomes a yearly pilgrimage for you to go into the desert or wherever to be with these people of God that you grow to love and be together. So basically, if you do the regular structure, the rhythm of it is laid out here for you just to give you an imagination of its basic look. But again, it can be so many different things. But it's 5 days because we're imagining if there's a group of 6 to 8 and a mentor, or 6 to 9, my group has 9 in it, then you need the spaciousness so you're not crowded. And so you arrive one day and there's arrivals, things going on. And the second day, if you'll notice, you usually have breakfast in silence if you want. Or individually. Usually the mentor brings some kind of prayer in the morning, a reflection. And there's group listening prayer. We give for this group listening prayer, we plan for an hour and a half for each person, and with a break in between, so that it feels spacious. So you're not worried about, I got to get through my things, because sometimes, as was my experience yesterday when I brought something to my group, I didn't even really know the whole of it until I started speaking it out loud. And it became more clear to me why this challenge was a challenge for me. And it was very helpful as they listened intently. So we have to give enough time for each person to unfold, not from the surface, but from the deep, what is going on inside of themselves, and then to have a group listening prayer together. We eat lunch in the community, and we can do, are you going to talk about how we do meals? I mean, people do meals different. Okay, thanks. And then in the afternoon, you can have individual free time. I meet one-on-one with each of my group people. You can have a silent retreat. You can go on a group excursion, go on a hike together, go to a museum, go see something fun, do something fun, but you can do something together. So the idea is to balance this rest with times to be playful, to enjoy the goodness of God's world and enjoy the time together. And then there's often another person in the afternoon or in the evening. We do dinner in community, and then different groups do different things in the evening. We can talk about that more. So that's the repetition. We have evening prayer before we separate. The last thing we do is an examine together, like we have talked about and done here. We do this examine. And then we just repeat that pattern for 3 days. It's the same thing. It's very simple. It doesn't take a lot of planning. You show up. You show up. Yeah. And you do the group listening prayer and then figure out how all these other details, and Anne will talk about some of those practicalities, how those others might work. And then on the 5th day, you prepare to leave. And oftentimes there's a conversation about what went well or what didn't went well. That's when we do all of our planning for, okay, get your calendars out. And we found we just use the same week every year. It works best. And have a worship and leave taking. So there are also some other notes here that might help you with that, but that's the basic rhythm, the simple thing that we're inviting you to. So
let me talk a little bit about practicalities.
Yes, take my mic.
And I'll say that this format, what we're sharing, is really what Leighton started. It is this Leighton Forward Ministries mentoring. Now, there's lots of different mentoring, and they're different formats. But this is the groups that we do have this particular form, and there we go.
It's hard.
It's a little hard. This is the form that they have. That we present to you, and there may be some of you who are called to do a Leighton Forward group, as Brenda is in a Leighton Forward group. Some of you might be called to put together a group where you're looking at young leaders. But you also might take some of this and adapt it, obviously, to your own mission, to your own church, to your own community.
And it doesn't have to be a Leighton Forward group.
It doesn't have to be a Leighton Forward group. This is a model we found that works, and we've been multiplying, but the Spirit blows where it will and in the ways that it will. And even within our groups, for example, in Mexico, because Mexico City, they're all together, they're able to meet more often. This format works particularly when you're gathering people globally or from across a country that really can't get together every week or every month or every 2 months. And if you can't, you can come together once a year, and if you commit to that for the whole life, we're not just looking at your spiritual life, it's your whole life. It's your body, it's your marriage, it's your family, it's your spirit, it's your whole life. And it is lifelong. These mentor groups we found, and again, there are many sorts of mentor groups that are wonderful, but something that you can count on over time is particularly useful to the Christian leader who's going really strong for some period, and almost everybody ends up in a crisis sometime. And to have people who can see you through the dips and the mountaintops and the long haul, with ministry, with family, with emotions, with spirituality, with tragedy, with joy. That is what Leighton really modeled for us, and many of us have followed with him. So a couple of practicalities as we're thinking about, you're saying, what do I do? I mean, the first really important discernment is who? Who? Who is God inviting me? And especially if you're planning to make a commitment to them for a long haul, this is worth some prayerful discernment, because you're saying to them, we're going to meet together. This is a long-term community. Now, you may get people together, and it may be that a couple people don't fit or somebody has to drop out. I know Leighton's had that. I have one woman who hasn't been able to come for a while. But you want to start with a hope that people will fit together and make a long-term commitment. So pray and listen for who it is. When I first started, there were a number of people who knew, I know the people I want in the group, and I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And I go, I don't really know. But what I do know is that I'm called to mentor some international women who don't have support, because I felt American women had a lot of support. But I didn't know who they were. I didn't know the people who didn't have support because they weren't connected. So I had to go and ask Elke Werner in Germany, and I had to ask Leighton, and I had to ask some deans of the seminaries, and I had to pray and say, who are those women who don't even have an idea there is such a thing as a mentor group, and invite them in. So you might know who they are because they're people that God's brought to you, or God might give you a vision for a group of people you imagine are in need and don't have a natural connection, but perhaps God's given you a vision to provide and be that support for them. So the first discernment is who? Who? And then you say how often. And we tend to do a getaway 4 or 5 days once a year. Again, Mexico City, some other places, if you're closer, might be a little bit different rhythm. People can't leave their jobs for a whole week. And so they'll go away for a retreat once a year and then meet every other month for a half a day. But you have to say, how often will we meet? And the venue, where will we meet? It's nice if you can find a home, a retreat center, a place where the environment itself is lovely, quiet, lends itself to retreat. But it doesn't have to be fancy. I mean, the women in India, where did they meet?
Well, the first time we met in Singapore, we were just in a little apartment, all crowded into one little space in downtown Singapore.
And they created community in one little space in downtown Singapore.
They did.
So you pick your venue. And then, and you're also looking a little bit in terms of who the chemistry. Leighton's groups have been men and women together. He's really was a pioneer, I think, when women were not really seen as ministry leaders in the evangelical world as much, that his daughter Deb, sort of helped prompt that and really invited women into leadership. So many of the groups are mixed. My groups, I happen to have done international women, and I just made it a women's group. And there are some men's groups. So you have that discernment. And how often and where, and then your rhythm, and the rhythm Mary Kate gave is a good general sense. But it might be, for our group, for example, because people are in different time zones, we actually don't get started. We leave the morning and the evening open so somebody can stay up late or get up early. And so we maybe will actually, we'll have a silent retreat the first day. After our first meeting and examine, we'll go away for quiet because people are so exhausted. And then they can speak out of a quiet place. And then we'll maybe start at 10, and we'll have one person share in the morning, and we'll have lunch. And we might have a second person, and then have quiet and fun in the evening. The main thing is to do it in a spacious way so people have time, so there's a rhythm of rest, of fun, of community, and it's not too much intensity. And the worship, the leader can do it, or we will sometimes have, we might pick a theme, the I am, and say everybody pick one and do it. Or what's even more fun for us is we'll say, bring something from your own ministry experience. So I have a woman who was working with Syrian refugees in Jordan, and she taught us the storytelling that she did with the Syrian refugees and did it with us. And I said, this isn't something you have to prepare. Don't prepare something. Yeah. Just bring who you are and something you have in your pocket, in your heart. It shouldn't be another burden. This is a time to get away. But everybody has something that they can bring that's really valuable and helpful and expands our own ministry perspectives and our own spiritual life. So let's hear a little bit about the particular groups. Leighton, why don't you tell us a little bit about your groups and how they work, and you'll hear from each of our experiences how groups are different.
May I sit next to you?
You may.
May I
Oh,
sit
and you
next
know
to
what? I invited you up, but I'm going to share one other practical thing. And that practical thing is on the first meeting, when you first get together, I have found it enormously valuable to use something that we used at the Lausanne Younger Leaders Conference in Malaysia, which is a lifeline, or, yes, would you do that? Or a life map. So we have people, you see, can you hold those up? So you ask people to go away and really take an hour, hour and a half, maybe even 2, and look over their spiritual life and their life generally, because the lifeline, this is a map, which would be, the lifeline has 3 lines. No, keep that one here, and because I'll show it. This one has lines for spiritual, the circumstance, emotional. You might have something where the circumstance was very negative, but perhaps that was when you came close to Christ. So, again, you might have a circumstance that emotionally was very hard, or it might have actually drawn you close together as a family. So on the lifeline, you're mapping out your life, differentiating emotional, circumstance, and spiritual. Other people are more visual, and they may want to, just make a map. It could be a tree, it could be a circle, it could be whatever. But it's a way of giving an image of your life. And people go away for an hour or 2, put this together, and then the first session, they present that. And it's a way, it takes a little longer than the 30 minutes that you share. It might take an hour. But it is a way to show your whole life without taking 4 hours. And I've found if you don't do that, you can spend a long time without knowing some very significant events of people's lives. And it's a sort of non-threatening way of allowing people to share key and significant events in their life. And it's a very good base for understanding each other. We did that with just small mentor groups for the Lausanne conference. Mm-hmm. So it can be used in a lot of circumstances as a way of, anytime you have a small group, to start off and have a fuller sense of a person's life. So Leighton, what are your groups like? And what are the practicalities you're
Our groups are wonderful.
Well, I know they are. That's why I want
They're a
you to tell
model
me
for everybody.
about it.
You ought to do your groups just like we do ours.
Oh, right. Just exactly like yours. You always want us to do it just like you, right?
Exactly. I told you the other morning, I think, how after the hurricane came to Charlotte and I was up at the lake, and it seemed as if the Lord was saying, if you want to make a difference, it won't happen by multiplying programs, by investing in people. And I actually wrote down a number of names of people that I've met in ministry around the world. And first time we called them together. And so I said, do we want to do this every year? And that's been about 27 years now. We've been meeting every year. And we call it the Point Group, partially because I was asked at Duke Divinity School once, many years ago, how have you seen Billy Graham change across the years? And I haven't asked that question before, and I said a few things, and then the picture of an arrow came to my mind, just kind of came. And I said, I think Billy Graham has been like an arrowhead, sharp at the point. It's always the gospel, it's always Christ. Broad at the base of it, as he's seen how that affects so many different areas of life, and then deep like the shaft of an arrow. So this first group, then we later had the Arrow Leadership Program, but the first group we called the Point Group. And we have met every year. We've met in different places. At one point, one time, we'd go to Australia, we'd go to Singapore, we'd go to Vancouver, we'd go to London, go to Germany, and see actually what the members of the group were doing in their place of ministry. More recently, we've been meeting in the North Carolina mountains, not terribly far from here. And that's been a regular thing. And as I showed you the picture the other day, we've added a couple. At least one has died, another's very ill, 2 have lost their spouses, so we really have done life together. The format has been very similar to what you've done. And at the beginning, we would have someone else come, and we had Oz Guinness come one year, Max Dupree came one year, and just to talk to the group. We discovered as we went along we didn't need that. There was enough wisdom in that group to share what we needed to hear. So we're still going. I just look at them and I think, all these young leaders, why are they all retiring? Really, they started off when they were young, now they're all at retirement point, a couple dying. So now I'm going to I'm going to ask you to leave, please. Would you please
Sure.
leave? Just go sit down there wherever you want.
Leave. I'll do whatever
Come
you
here,
say.
Eric. I hadn't planned on this. Come on up here, big guy. He needs lots of. I've known Eric so long. He needs lots of time to prepare, as you've noticed. He never speaks spontaneously. He has manuscripts, and so. But I thought I would take a chance on doing something. So he didn't know about this. I finally thought, we have this brilliant point group. Now we need a younger group, people a little bit younger than they are.
Lord, you screwed up there, didn't you?
And who might they be? So out of that came what we call the...
Sick doors.
Now I want you just to talk to us about how that started and how it's been for you.
Yeah.
You have less than an hour to tell it. You have less than 30 minutes. You have less than 10 minutes.
Yeah, well,
I don't know how long you have. Now I'm going to stop talking in just a minute. Now, what has it been like?
We have a really bad name. We need a name. So how do you beat the point group, right? How do you beat that name? Pretty good name. So one of the guys in our group was named James Sigdor Peterson. So they named our group after his middle name, the Sigdors. And I'm sure that was really helpful for you.
I've been trying to explain to people what this mystery cult is for years. Now, what is this Sigdor group?
Right. So, but we have a good motto. And I forget who it was. Maybe it was Chris. Our motto is Solvitur ambulando, which means it is solved by walking. So it's a metaphor. We've walked together for a bunch of years, and we have. I think walking is a really big part of our group, isn't it?
Especially when you wear me out.
Well, yeah, I've been assigned to Leighton to walk with Leighton. One of my craziest memories is going up Grandfather Mountain, and it was the second time you climbed Grandfather Mountain after your heart attack, and all these hikes with Leighton post heart attack are prefaced by "Don't tell Jeannie."
I'm still here, Eric.
Don't tell Jeannie. And I remember going up Grandfather with Leighton, and so we had some people who were exercise freaks, and so they were way ahead. So I'm walking with Leighton, and his watch goes off. Oh, it's 12 o'clock. We have to pray this prayer of St. Columbine or St. Edmund or whoever whoever it was.
St. Percy.
Yeah. And so I think for me, the issue is when we first met,
How big is the group, roughly?
it's been different sizes.
Mm-hmm.
But I think our group is I think when we first met, there were about 10 people invited.
Mm-hmm.
And I think 2 of them decided not to go into a second year with us
That's
because
right.
they had other things going on. It was intimidating for me. I remember because, it's a little intimidating reading all your bios coming here. Holy cow. Someone was on 27 boards. I forget who that was. I'm like, And I remember going to the Daniel Boone Inn. By the way, people in our group now tell me, Eric, you have to tell Leighton we're not going to the Daniel Boone Inn. So it's all carbs. We're not going to the Daniel Boone Inn. We're at the Daniel Boone Inn, and all these people are talking about their publishers. 5 people are talking about their publishers. And I leaned to Jim Sigdor Peterson. I said, dude, we're going to have to write a book. or we're going to get kicked out of here. And one day I will write a book, and you will laugh and you will cry when you read it, I guarantee you. Just because I feel like it's been the last 25 years of my life being exegeted in some way, shape, or form. Yeah. So the gift of inclusion, the gift of friendship. So we've lost people in our group. One of the members of our group had a huge crisis, kind of stepped aside from ministry, and was no longer in ministry, and so no longer really came to this group. And I don't know all the detail behind it, but it was a big crisis and it was hard. So I just remember, we're all on the phone. So in crisis moments, and people have been on the phone for my crisis moments. Leighton would organize a phone call. People have crises, has been noted. Let's talk about it. Let's pray for this person. Let's support this person. The one thing I'll never forget, and this is emotional too. I've told Leighton this probably more than one time. So after this happened, this crisis with this person, good guy, Leighton and Irv were passing through the Pittsburgh airport. I get a phone call. I'm right near the Pittsburgh airport, and it's Leighton. He said, I said, Leighton, how you doing? Oh, you got time for a cup of coffee now? I just wanted you to know if there's ever something that happens to you, I want you to call me. Right? So no one's ever said that to me but my dad. So my dad's the only other person that has said that to me. And one other story to share. It's about Irv. Irv Chambers. We don't talk about him too much.
Couldn't talk about him too much.
Yep. So one year we were in Seattle, and I probably should tell a funny story. So we're in Seattle with one of our group. He was in was it Baptist?
Yeah.
Yeah. He was like a Baptist. He was like you, right? Ken Carter. Cool name, by the way, Ken Carter. Ken Carter, nice to meet you. So this may be year 3 or 4, still settling into this, still like, what a blessing, what a privilege to be here with these people. And I find my room. It's this beautiful retreat center on a lake. And Irv and I started off in a rocky place because I came to LFM through what was called an evangelism leadership seminar, and it was at Trinity. My son was 3 months old. There were like 4 feet of snow on the ground, had just fallen. Everything was canceled. Well, we're not canceling this, man. People have flown in from all over the country. And Irv was like this incredible slave driver rule guy, right? So I'm like, who's this Irv guy? So I got to know him. I roomed with Irv our first year. He was my roommate, got to know him a little bit. And so we're in Seattle, about the 4th year. Beautiful conference center. I have my own room. Wow, that's cool. And the older you get, the more important it is to have your own room, right? Really is. So I had to ask Irv about something, transportation, a meal, or something like that. And where's Irv? I had this beautiful room. It's on a lake. I think it had like a little balcony. A great place to listen to God. Oh, he's in like 223. Go to room 223. There's Irv's room. No windows, no view. Tells you all you need to know about Irv. So here's this great, incredible man of God. I'm this little podunk pastor. I get the good room. So, anything else?
No.
Thank you.
Yeah. You're a good buddy, even if you did almost kill me.
Sorry for the tears.
Oh,
Oh,
never
wow.
apologize for the tears.
Whoa. Whoa.
Why don't you pass it to me?
I want to talk just briefly about my group.
I will add one thing to that, and that is when you get to my age, to have a guy like that who's your friend. What a gift. Thank you.
Yeah.
So you get it back. When you give it, you get it back.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Go ahead.
And I think that's really important because it's not just about for the mentor. It becomes your community too, and you get as much from them as you give. So it's you're around the table together before God. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Eric. I wanted to share just a couple things about my group because I think it's a little different and it might help with your imagination for what might be possible. But my first group I started years ago with some church planters, and I wanted to do a group that had met a married couple. And so I wanted to do married couples groups. And I started with these church planters, and we met together for about 3 years, and I realized that it wasn't working. It wasn't working, and I was heartbroken because I really wanted to have the spouses involved and be part of that. But what I found was that the spouses, these particular spouses, were not in ministry, and so it was just too difficult for them and to find their place in this high-powered group of church planting men. And so I was doing a separate thing with the women and then a separate thing with the men. And I also found that these men were not that committed to the whole of the group. A few of them got connected to each other and then didn't really pay much attention to the rest. And I says, this isn't working. And I tell that story because it's a journey trying to find out who are those particular people that God is calling you to walk with. And it's not, you don't get a magical thing right at the first time. And I started thinking about it like leaven, when you're making bread, you need a little leaven that then has a huge impact. And so who are those leaven people? Who are those leaven people? So we can't do this for everybody. It would be wonderful if we could. But I started to say, praying for those leaven people. And so after 3 years with this one group, we decided to lay it down because it wasn't as meaningful to them. It wasn't really hitting on all cylinders. And so we laid it down, and I went again into prayer, and I thought, I just still had it on my heart to do couples. And what I discovered I needed to find were those couples, those leaven couples, Leaven, not leaven, who both were in ministry. Both the wife and the husband were in ministry, and not necessarily in the same ministry, but they were both in ministry. And the Lord began to bring those people to mind. And so because of my first experience, what I did was I said, well, let's try this for a year. And then at the end of the year, we'll evaluate how this works together. And the first year, I brought a young couple in, and it just didn't work. One of the couple would just go off and not be a part of the prayers, wouldn't show up for anything, was reading a book, and it just wasn't working because you can't have one person disinterested in the community. So I said, this isn't going to work. I don't think this is for you. And I wasn't afraid to say that to them because for the sake of the long haul of that calling, people needed to bring their whole self to that. So my group now has been together for 10 years. We're called Space for Grace. And we meet the same time every year, the first full week in August. And we used to go up to Canada to do this, but because of health issues, one of the younger leaders had transverse myelitis, and so he can't walk very well. So we had to find a place on the coast, which wasn't hard to adjust from Canada to the Oregon coast. But what I found is, though, finding a routine of time and place helps a lot. For us, it helped a lot. And my group is couples who are both in ministry. They come from all over the United States. But I also invited a single woman to be involved because she was desperate for a community, and she fits in perfectly. And she comes from Thailand. And so we are this group of married couples and this woman from Thailand. And this year we celebrate our 10th year together. And they have been transformative in my life. I can mark significant spiritual moments of clarity, discernment, or comfort from my time with this group. And they bring their journals back, and they go back and review what happened last time as they're coming, and they're doing a review and examine of what has happened since the last time, and they come prepared with their journals to pick up where we left off.
One of the things I did as I was imagining my group is to think of the long haul, the multiplication. And so I actually told my women when they came, because they go like, how did I get picked for this? Did I hit the jackpot? What happened? And so at the beginning, I told them that this would not be right away, but my hope and prayer would be that at least some of them, as they experienced this and were invested in, that they would in turn pass this on and form groups. So just as Eric is here now because Leighton has invested in him, he will start a group. He's imagining a group that he will start. And so I have in my international group that's been going for 10 years now, one of my mentees from Kenya, Priscilla, has gathered a group of African women. And she can mentor those women in Africa in a way I could never do. And there's an Asian woman in Vancouver who's going to mentor young women pastors. So there are these groups that have, and a woman from Croatia who's a scholar, picking up other scholars from countries that where women particularly don't have the sort of support and opportunities. So I keep telling Leighton, he's got children and got grandchildren, and now he's got great-grandchildren and great-great-grandchildren. And I think a little bit the way Jesus, you go, he just had 12 disciples. How are you going to make a movement? But if indeed we do it well, if indeed we do it deeply, if indeed we invest deeply with our own lives in a few key people who will then invest in a few key people 10 years from now, 20 years from now. And it's one of the reasons when Leighton, our whole mentor community started, when one of the Signors, Chris Woodall, said to Leighton, you've set a table for us and you're not going to be here forever. I don't think this table should stop with you or with us. You can't do this. We need to share it. And that was when we said, let's share the vision. So what God gave and inspired you to do with those could inspire others of us, which is why we said, why don't you come? And I would say all who might be listening to this on this tape, come and like Jesus, choose your few and walk with them, invest in them, and take time, maybe out in ministry, but also away. And then they, in turn, will do that. So one generation to another, to another, to another, the good news will be made known, and it will be known by people who are refreshed on the journey and who have strength for the long haul and know that they are not alone. Did you have something you want to add here, Mark?
Thank you. Well, I'm the newest member of this family team here, and went to Apple Hill for the training about 7 years ago, something like that. But I would say, so I haven't had the longevity that they've had, and I've learned so much from each of these dear friends. But two places I'd like to share, just the maybe another slant or another paradigm of how this can look, is the picture I showed last night of the mentoring community the community of evangelists that we formed with InterVarsity, because we had to figure out how do these principles adapt to our own environment. And in the InterVarsity life and subculture, there's an academic calendar rhythm. There's certain times. So how often do we meet, for example? We had to adapt to that. So first we wanted to identify who are women and men who are gifted as evangelists in InterVarsity and in student university work in their ministry, and then to say, how can we come together as a community and have space like this in terms of the soul care and silence and solitude and retreat, but also there was an equipping piece of that. And so we were caring for their souls and sharpening their skills. That's how we kind of put it. And so we wanted to help them grow as thinking evangelists, but also grow in their inner life with God. And so we would meet together twice. Well, first we had to identify them. We gathered about 8 or 10 of them together. We met twice a year because that was at the only 2 weeks of the entire year that worked for them based on the calendar demands. And we would gather for 4 days, and we would go sometimes to a retreat center, sometimes in someone's home, but we always had times of extended personal retreat and time of Lectio Divina and solitude and silence. And then we would sometimes bring in someone to teach about theology of the gospel and some of the challenges that were going on in the evangelical world about what is the gospel. And so we'd have a discussion for an hour and a half on that. Or it wasn't heavy teaching, but it was something to stimulate them. Where we brought Lon Allison in to do a training on evangelistic preaching and communication, and then they had to give a message. And so there were some training pieces in that weren't the pure model that we're talking about, but we really brought the values of LFM into that. Now, we had that go on through a few years, but now I've been about 7 years ago when I was at Apple Hill, God began putting in my heart an LFM mentoring group for evangelists. And I talked to one of you today just about how some of your vision has been 20 years, 30 years stirring, and you get frustrated, and I do too, of when will this ever happen? And I met with Leighton about it several times, and he just said, don't be in a rush. The Lord will bring that to you, the right time, the right people. And it's been frustrating, to be really honest, because I wanted it yesterday, about 7 years ago. But now, in God's timing, right now, I feel led to launch 2 new groups. So that's where I could relate a different thing to you, that I'm asking first, who are these people? And usually there's an affinity, there's some kind of a natural draw mutually, there's something in common, but I feel led to start 2 groups this summer, God willing. One would be kind of a peer group, I'd say established evangelists who are within 10 years of my life, roughly or so, who in turn could be like you, launching their own mentoring groups, but that would be a safe place for them. And then a second group that would be more emerging evangelists that are younger, and that would be very different in that. But again, I'm in the process of saying, what does that look like? But I really appreciate Leighton's counsel when he just said, number one, wait. But number 2 was, like Mary Kate said, one of the next steps may be to just simply say, come and spend a few days with me. Let's just gather 4 or 5 people together and get a taste of this. And or maybe 1 or 2 people. And then out of that may come the launching of the mentoring group. So I just thought that might give you another paradigm.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful.
Talk about finances.
Yeah, you want to say something?
Of course, one thing we want to mention is how do you pay for this? That's a big question. When I was doing a training in Karen in Kenya, there was a group of African Kenyan leaders that were there and learning about spiritual mentoring communities, and this came up. What should we do about paying for this? So resources are a big question. And they started thinking, well, this, I don't know, and this, we're going to have to get some funding and outside. And the bishop there, Bishop John, I'll never forget what he said. He says, if God has called us to it, God will provide for it. And it lifted the hearts of everyone, that profound trust that this is from God. Then God will make possible the funding. And so I think there is a faith element in this. There is a faith element. The practical part of this is in my group, I fundraise for a couple of my people who just are in the kinds of ministries where they are they don't have a lot of resources because they are out in very difficult places like urban ministry downtown with people without homes, or in the Karen tribe of Thailand. And so I pray about it, and I raise funds for their travel and their expenses. And there's a couple in the group who have a lot of resources, and they anonymously give to a pot to help pay for it. So I believe that God makes a way for us, and to trust God and pray also for how God will provide for this to happen. And you can talk about it.
Yeah, and LFM gives some seed money for a few groups, but the understanding is that it has to be something that continues, and there has to be some way. Sometimes if you can have a little seed money, what happens is people taste of it. And then once they taste, it's like they're going to find a way. And we do have, in our group also, there'll be one person whose finances are easier, or who is really good at fundraising, and so she'll contribute more to the person who maybe is from Croatia and just doesn't have a way to get there. Or there occasionally has been someone who would love to be a prayer and financial sponsor for the group. You might go to someone you know and say, I'm thinking of doing this. Would you like to sponsor this in some way? And they could not only give financially, but prayerfully. We've had that happen. So I think you have to be creative, and if everybody chips in, you might have to have a donated place. And some people go away to a retreat center where the meals are done, and others go to a house that somebody offers, and we all cook together. So, or you're in a little apartment in India. So you sort of find a way to do it. So Leighton, you got any wisdom here to add?
How could I? No, that's right. That's exactly right.
So, yes.
You raise money, do you send it through L?
No.
Or you just
No,
spread it up?
no, the groups, every group, it's important to have some way. Now, groups, many times you might have a church that would sponsor, so you could do it that way. It's really all creative and individual in terms of how you do that. But what we want you to do now, we want you to imagine. I'm sure you've already been imagining. You wouldn't have even come away if you wouldn't have taken the time here if you weren't already imagining. Yes.
I have one question.
Yes.
It seems like you have been with Leighton for some years. My question, one to Leighton, is do you ever have more than one group at a time?
Question is, do I have more than one group at a time? I only have two groups. I have the first one, the ones who are now at retirement, who are continuing on in ministry, and then the one that's about 10 years younger. We met once at the same time. But with everything else that was going on, I felt I didn't have, at that point in my life and the strength I had, I couldn't take a lot more on. So we talked to our board about that, and a member of our board said, well, if you think we ought to do it, I'll do it. That's the one who raised their hand and said, I'll do it. So now I have individuals I meet with, of course, from time to time, and delighted to do that, but I only have those two groups. And I have to say that this mysterious Sigdor group, we came to the place after, 15 years, Eric? How many?
22.
22 times?
Yeah.
22 years.
22
years. We came to the place where some of the people were not able to come as much and perhaps not quite as interested. So we came to a time last fall where we said, hey, we've been together all of this time. Let's thank the God for it. Not a God, the God. And celebrate what he's done. And we came to a conclusion. Now we still contact each other, and I still meet with some of them. But not every group has to go on forever.
Yeah. So I think that, I mean, every person, you have to say, what capacity do you have? I suppose if there's somebody where this is your full passion, I mean, I had one group and then I had another group, developed another group, so I also have two. My model, I found somebody else to do it with. So in both of my groups, I found a friend who I thought, I really want to have time with this friend. This person will help. And so they'll help with logistics or cooking or whatever. And so with both of my groups, I have a co-leader. And it really makes it fun for us. And it also means there's a year, one of my co-leader, her husband died. Well, that's okay. I can meet. If something happened to me, she could. And so there's something to the 2x2. You may have somebody who is like you, or maybe like an Irv, who would be willing to come. So be creative. Imagine. This is something to just give you, spark your own imagination, your own heart, your own prayer. How might you be called? Because it's really about us as senior leaders reaching down to the next generation and coming alongside. And in a sense, us choosing them and saying, we believe in you. We see God's Spirit at work in you. We want to accompany you and encourage you and bring you together with one another. There's so much that happens with the peers. They become family and such encouragement with one another. And that's what the peer group does. There's this huge richness of resource among people who are doing similar and different ministries where they teach and encourage each other. Yeah, Brenda.
Each of you share what intentionality you have in between the retreats.
Oh, good question. Okay, so the question is, in between the retreats, what is the intentionality? How do you keep up with one another between these retreats?
Various ways, email, both from me to them, occasional Skype calls once in a while, especially if someone is going through a critical time. Phone calls, just a little touch. I found small touches are important. It doesn't have to be long meetings, just to call someone and say, hey, Eric, how's it going? So that's basically, and then within the group, our groups, within a group of 10, maybe there are 3 that are really close together. You've got a couple of people, Eric, don't you, that you're closer with, that you probably keep in contact with more often. They'll do ministry together. Like Roland Vernon in Germany, Jay John in England, they've done things, together in ministry. Lon Allison has. So that happens within the group too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, ours is similar, and we might have somebody initiate an email. Hey, this is what's happening with me. Everybody respond if you can. And we'll do that a couple times a year. We might have a phone call. And then we've had occasional times where people will visit one another. A couple months ago, we said, anybody want to go to the museum in Birmingham? And so 3 of us were able to make it in sort of a mini trip. And so there'll be some sort of small gatherings in between, just as we're able.
I have one group, my Space for Grace group. We have a Facebook page and we have WhatsApp, and so we use both of those. And also, I'm available to them. I call them, or they call me. Right now, one of the couples are having a lot of difficulties in their church, and I've gone down twice and spent a day with their staff.
It's unusual, Eric, that you think I said something smart. Well, thank you. Just every once in a while.
I know. About affinity in choosing.
About what?
Affinity and choosing.
In terms of choosing the members at the member, yes. I will say, actually, one of the things that I looked for is leaders. I also look for people who were hungry for mentoring. Yes. There are people who have good local mentors, or they already have them. God bless them. Isn't that wonderful? So I was really looking for those who were outstanding, gifted leaders, but who didn't have the support system. And they were hungry. So there were a few people I wrote initially and said, are you interested? And they said, oh, that sounds great, but I don't think I can make it. And there were others who said, well, I have something else, but I'm canceling it because I really want this. those are the people that I took, because it takes a lot of effort. And the affinity, I think the affinity, part of the affinity comes from this love of Jesus and this desire to share that with the world. And the affinity, that has been the affinity. And there's actually been something good about having some diversity.
Yes.
Diversity of actual ministry, diversity of where they come from. But the affinity is for Christ and for community that they're hungry for. And then they really learn sometimes from that similarity and sometimes from the difference. Did that hit it?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. So we want all of you to be thinking, you've got your own ideas. We want time for you to be listening for that. So I'm going to...
Are there any other questions from anybody?
Well, I think we need a break, because we can do questions later.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll have that at
Because
the
we're gonna
fireside
have
chat.
another questions,
We'll do
yeah.
that, yeah. So what I want to do is this. I want to take just a moment and give a brief meditation for you all to think and imagine your own call to mentoring. I'm going to give you maybe 5 minutes. Listen, pray, jot it down. And when I say amen, then we'll take a break, about a 15-minute break, and then we'll go back to our groups. And in the groups, we'll meet in the same places, same groups, and it'll be a place where we can listen to one another and share those visions and have people listen prayerfully about those visions with you. Okay? Are you ready? Okay. So if you'll just take a moment here and imagine your own heart for mentoring. When and how has it been sparked? What is the sense of calling that you have? And let the Spirit with you imagine who the Spirit might be inviting, who and perhaps where and how within your context, within your church, within your ministry, within this global world and the relationships you have, who might the Spirit be inviting you to come alongside and to invite and to accompany and encourage and pray for their journey with Jesus. Just take some time, and when you're ready, jot a few notes. It's the Spirit of the living God. Stir and empower and spark our hearts for those who perhaps even now are crying out, saying, I am lonely. Who will walk with me? How will I make this journey for the long haul? Help us to hear and match our heart cries with theirs, we pray. Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen.